Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Ngo, and these are your 3 o'clock headlines. A magnitude 4.4 earthquake has struck off the British Columbia coast, with provincial emergency officials saying no damage or injuries are expected. The quake was recorded off the southern tip of the Haida Gwaii archipelago just before 4 p.m. on Wednesday. The quake occurred in the vicinity of the Queen Charlotte Plate boundary, an area scientists say has the potential to generate the largest megathrust earthquakes and tsunamis. Earthquakes Canada says no tsunami is expected. Police in Prince George are investigating a shooting over the weekend after a man was taken to hospital with serious injuries. RCMP say the case began when frontline officers responded to a vehicle that crashed into another unoccupied vehicle on Saturday. Police say they then found the 37-year-old victim, who was taken to hospital in non-life-threatening condition. Police say the early investigation indicates the attack was targeted, and investigators are looking to identify suspects who may be involved. TransLink will be holding an open house to get community input on their bus rapid transit program. There will be 5 different locations with an open house between January 24th and 31st. The hope is to answer any questions the local community has about the program. TransLink spokesperson Dan Mountain says that they want people to come and have their say.
We encourage community members to come, ask their questions, give their feedback in person, have someone that you can talk to in person and have that instant feedback and one-on-one exchange, right? So we want to make sure that people have that opportunity, and we're doing several events all along the corridor so that people who live close to the planned stations will have the ability to come by and have their say.
The Alberta RCMP Historical Homicide Unit has charged a man in a homicide case that is nearly 2 decades old. The murder happened in February 2007 in the Samson Cree Nation, south of Edmonton. RCMP say the breakthrough was the result of a strengthening partnership between residents and the police. A 42-year-old resident of the reserve has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Saskatchewan's government is launching an independent third-party review into hospital security following concerns of growing violence. The province says it will find an expert to undertake the review, and the metal detectors are to be installed at emergency room entrances in 4 cities. Health Minister Jeremy Cockrell says the independent review will examine how security is delivered in hospitals and identify areas where safety can be enhanced.
I just want to say to the frontline staff who have raised concerns and shared their experiences, your government has heard you, and this review will ensure your perspectives are carefully considered as we work to create a safer environment for everyone, for healthcare workers and for patients.
Quebec Premier François Legault's successor will be chosen on April 12th. The Coalition Avenir Quebec Party says its leadership race starts today, and candidates have until February 21st to submit their applications. Legault said last week he would step down as party leader and premier after his successor is named. No candidate has officially come forward, but Ministers Simon Jola Barrette, Bernard Dronville, and Christine Frechette are all those who consider a run. An abandoned fish sauce plant in St. Mary's, Newfoundland, has been the subject of long-standing concerns in the community. Environment Minister Chris Tibbs says his government is working to have the site cleaned up after high winds blew off part of the building's ocean-facing wall last week, exposing more than 100 vats of long-fermenting fish sauce. Tibbs says the Liberal Member of Parliament for the region, Paul Connors, said earlier this week there will be federal funds to help out. Vice President J.D. Vance is blaming the far left for turmoil surrounding the White House deportation campaign. Vance made the comments during a stop in Toledo, Ohio, before arriving in Minnesota for a meeting with Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. Customs and Border Protection Commander Gregory Bovino says officers are doing a great job, but could do better if they weren't being set up by what he calls an influx of anarchists.
We can do this much better for the citizens of Minneapolis. And what this revolves around is the climate. The current climate surrounding law enforcement and this Title VIII mission in which ICE, Border Patrol, and these allied teams are fighting so hard to accomplish. Now, this climate that we talk about is not very favorable right now in Minneapolis.
Vancouverites are gathering today to show solidarity for people back in the mainland who face a lack of electricity, heating, and water. Jonah Jung reports on how the Ukrainian community is reacting.
The United Nations said in a press release on Tuesday that the Russian military struck the energy infrastructure in Kiev, leading to large areas of the Ukrainian capital facing a power outage. The residents in Kiev are living in shelters following the strike. The UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, has condemned the attack as a cruel breach of the rules of warfare. The event on Burrard Bridge, called Bridge of Unity, is hosted by Ukrainian Congress Canada's Vancouver branch, Ukrainian Canadian Advocacy Group, and UA Rally, the Voice of Ukraine. Through a Facebook post, the organizers encouraged participants to bring candles, flashlights, and Ukrainian flags, saying that the light of unity is stronger than any blackout. Jonah Jung, BCIT News.
The mother of a Canadian man detained in northeastern Syria says he risks going from one legal black hole into another as prisoners in the strife-torn region are transferred to Iraq. Sally Lane has been calling on Ottawa for years to facilitate the release of her son Jack Letts from a Syrian prison. Letts is among the foreign nationals held in ramshackle detention centers run for years by the Kurdish forces that reclaimed the war-ravaged area from the militant group Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. The National Film Board of Canada receives another Oscar nomination, this time for a Montreal-based animation duo. Reporter Caroline Doyle tells us about the nominee.
The Girl Who Cried Pearls has been nominated for the Best Animated Short Film category at the Oscars. The 17-minute-long stop-motion animation film set in 20th century Montreal follows a poor young boy who falls in love with a girl whose tears turn into pearls. He must decide between love or the promise of wealth. Creators Chris Lavis and Michik Cherbowski say they are proud to represent Canada. The 98th Academy Awards take to the stage on March 15th in Los Angeles. Caroline Doyle, BCIT News.
In weather, we have reached today's high of 5 degrees. Not too warm. A mix of sun and cloudy temperatures. Here's today. Temperatures. With the clouds sticking around tonight and tomorrow morning. That's all for news, but stick with us because we still got sports to cover. Starting in hockey, Canucks fans can rejoice as the team defeated the Washington Capitals 4-3, officially ending their 11-game losing streak. The Canucks went down 2-0 early on, but rallied with 4 consecutive goals to win the game. Canucks head coach Adam Foote was happy that his group stuck to the game plan despite the early deficit.
I'm just happy that the way probably wouldn't want the game to start the way it did. You know, it could have easily been 3 or 4 with some bad luck, but it's probably meant to be the way it did happen, and we were resilient. We can really grow from this, and we're going to have, with this young group, we're going to have some tough nights here and there, but to not fall off the game plan is what I'm so happy for them. Like, they're going to grow from this. It's good.
The Canucks' next game is against the New Jersey Devils tomorrow night. The Vancouver Golden Knights face the Toronto Scepters tonight in the Professional Women's Hockey League. Toronto edged Vancouver 2-1 in overtime last week in front of nearly 18,000 fans at Scotiabank Arena. The Scepters are 6th in the PWHL standings, while the Golden Knights sit at the bottom of the standings in 8th. This is the first game for the Golden Knights since their 6-player trade with the Ottawa Charge earlier this week. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. The Toronto Raptors defeated the Sacramento Kings Wednesday night 122-109. Toronto has won both of its back-to-back games, improving their record to 27-19. Forwards Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and center Sandro Mamukelashvili each put up over 20 points on the night. Head coach Darko Rajakovic said that his team is smart when it comes to decision-making.
Yes, I think we're making good decisions, and I thought for a stretch of games we were making good decisions. Now we're just like more comfortable with those decisions and understanding that when our good shooters are taking shots, we got to live with the outcome. And of course, we're going to go on these stretches that, we're not going to be making shots, but also when we get hot, I think that's to our advantage.
Toronto's next match will be against the Portland Trail Blazers tomorrow night. 4 Seattle Seahawks have been named as finalists for NFL awards. The list of players and their nominated awards are as followed. Wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba for Offensive Player of the Year. Safety Nick Emenwari for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Head coach Mike McDonald for Coach of the Year. And offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak for Assistant Coach of the Year. Seahawks general manager John Schneider was also named PWFA Executive of the Year. The award ceremony will take place on February 5th. The FBI is investigating the death of former Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay. A federal grand jury subpoena shows the agency is seeking records and information related to Irsay's death. Irsay suffered a relapse in his drug addiction and was given opioids and ketamine by his doctor in the final months of his life. The FBI is looking into his death and has asked for the recovery of the doctor who provided the drugs. Irsay passed away back in May of 2025. Ontario's Denis Shapovalov has been eliminated in the third round of the Australian Open. Shapovalov lost in 3 sets against former U.S. Open champion Marin Cilic. Meanwhile, Victoria Mboko plays in the third round of women's singles against Denmark's Clara Tauson. Mboko says that her next game will be a tough battle.
I didn't really watch any of her matches yet, but I mean, I know she's very aggressive. She's ranked really high for a reason, so I know it's going to be also another battle on Friday, is it? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be tough. She's a hard hitter, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Mboko plays at 4 o'clock this afternoon. A major Quebec ski resort that has been shut down because of a labor dispute will resume operations on Saturday after unionized employees voted in favor of a new deal. The CSN union representing the workers at Les Massifs de Charlevoix says its members voted 91% in favor of a deal. The union says the new 5-year deal includes annual raises of between 3 and 5%. The 300 or so workers have been striking since January 2nd, with wages as the main sticking point. That's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, I'm James Ngo, and you're listening to BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
When I tell people that I studied journalism, they immediately say, oh, you want to be a reporter. But I think, in my case personally, I really want to go into magazines, PR, social media, and I think here at school we learn a lot of skills that allow you to go into that world because you learn how to write for social media, social content, for websites,